So, musst du schon? Ah ja, ja. Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, es freut mich, dass Sie heute. Du willst das wissen? Ah, du weißt das eh. Na gut. Eins, zwei, drei, vier, laut und deutlich. Guten Morgen. Geht's dir gut? Ausgeschlafen, zu ausgeschlafen? Sehr gut. Na, weiß ich nicht, ob es gut ist. Eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf, sechs, sieben, acht, neun, 10. Jetzt gehe ich nicht vor die Lautsprecher. Jetzt bleibe ich hier. Bist du zufrieden, lieber Boris? Morgen. Eins, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Jänner, Februar, März, April, Mai, Juni, Juli, Urlaub, September, Oktober, November, Dezember. Ja, ihr lacht ja. Guten Morgen. Boris, soll ich noch weitersprechen, oder was? Ja, bitte gerne.
conference ahead of us.
Zero Project is a wonderful place to share, as we've heard, the innovations that improve the lives of disabled people.
We want to make sure that we create a future that's accessible to everyone.
Zero barriers must be the ultimate goal.
It's not about having special needs. It's about having equal human rights.
And it makes me getting up fighting for my daughter every day of my life so easy when I am inspired by all of you.
Einen wunderschönen guten Morgen.
Good morning to all of you, and a cordial welcome to the kickoff event of the Zero Project Conference 2023. Now, these images captured the developments that took place last year, and they should serve as a reminder, why have we gotten here together in Vienna for the kickoff event here at the Austrian Parliament? We'll talk about the involvement and the engagement, the participation of people with disabilities. We want to make sure that they are part of our societies, an integral part of our society. I'm your facilitator this morning. It's my job to moderate this event. For the fourth time in a row, we have assembled here in the Austrian Parliament to kick off the Zero Project Conference. For the first time in the newly refurbished Austrian Parliament, a lot of money has been invested, a lot of intellectual work has gone into renovating the Parliament so that this is also an accessible building. We want everyone to participate and be part of our democratic processes. This is very important because without us, nothing is done for us. So the Zero Project Conference focuses on political participation yet again. We'll also shed light on inclusion for people with disabilities. Political participation, of course, is key. We'll hear more about other European countries. International best practices and innovations will be highlighted, as well as those coming from Austria. And we're very much looking forward to this conference day. All of this is only possible because there are a lot of people out there who have realized how important this event and this conference is. We have a few guests of honor that we're going to welcome now. The host of our event, the President of the Austrian Parliament, the Speaker of the Austrian Parliament, Wolfgang Sobotka. Thank you very much for being our host today. We're also welcoming the co-host, the founder of the Essel Foundation and the Zero Project Initiative, Martin Essel. Thank you very much, sir. We also have international top experts and speakers who have found their way to Vienna. Charlotte McLean-Lapu, who accepted our invitation. She's going to deliver her keynote later on. Welcome to Vienna. Great to have you here. I would also like to mention those responsible for people with disabilities here in the Austrian Parliament. They will present some solutions and innovations. Kira Grünberg from the Austrian People's Party, member of the Austrian Parliament, welcome. Then Christian Oksonich from the Social Democrats, also member of the Austrian Parliament. Then Heike Grevian from the Greens, welcome. Fiona Fiedler from NEOS, good morning to you as well. And finally from the Freedom Party, Christian Rager is represented today by Rosa Egger. Welcome. Well, we don't have government experts here, but experts in the field of people with disabilities. I'm going to present them to you a bit later. Let's give a big hand to all those experts that will highlight innovation. We have Klaus Wiedel here, Erich Schmidt, Erich Schmidt, who represents the president of the Austrian Association of People with Disabilities, then the chairperson of the Monitoring Committee, Christine Steger, the president of the Federal Association of People with Disabilities, Rudolf Kavania. Gregor Demblin is not here yet, and we'll welcome him a bit later. Heidemarie Egger is here, Bernadette Feuerstein is also here, Franz Josef Heinig, Hanna Kanrad, Julia Moser, and Katharina Pranjes. Welcome to all of you. Let's give you a big hand. Welcome to you, to our conference, dear experts. Harald Dosse from the Austrian Parliament, high-ranking representative of the Austrian Parliament, will deliver a few concluding remarks at the end of this kickoff event a bit later. And then I would like to also welcome a few international guests that will take the floor. They will make presentations and present solutions to us. All those who have come from faraway countries, thanks for joining us here in Vienna. Thank you. We'd also like to welcome the members of the Austrian National Council as well as Federal Council. There is support given by all the members of the Austrian Parliament, both the National Council and the Federal Council. I'd also like to welcome the representatives of advocacy groups and NGOs that know quite clearly what people with disabilities need. And I would also like to welcome other guests as well as those connected to our event via the live stream. Thanks for joining us and welcome to all of you. I'm very much looking forward to this important event. So there's a live stream and there's also live subtitling. To my left, you have Markus Schmidt, who interprets everything into Austrian Sign Language, together with Sabine Zell, which is very important. Whatever is communicated should also be able to be heard and watched in an accessible manner. I would like to thank very much our two sign language interpreters. All right, that's it from my part. I'm now looking forward to the speaker's introductory statement. Mr. Sobotka, thanks for being here and thanks for being our host this morning. We're very much looking forward to your introductory comments. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to welcome you to this kickoff event in the newly refurbished and reopened Austrian Parliament. The opening took place about a month ago. At the beginning, I'd like to pay tribute to the organizers. This is a new building. Finding your way in a renovated building, well, that is quite a challenge. And I'm quite sure that you feel good here. Now, Martin Essel, welcome to you. Zero Project is something that you have embarked on together with your co-workers. And the Zero Project people are very open, and so are we. Our staff, headed by Mr. Dossier, well, they consider accessibility very important. This has now become part of the mindset of all those working for the Austrian Parliament. And that's crucial for us. It's important for us to make sure that this building is open. And we try to reach out as much as possible to the world out there. So this is an accessible building, which is a given, which is something that we must take for granted. Now, there are important reasons for this. We want to put inclusion into practice, and for this, the building has to be accessible. And then we also want to be a role model. We want to show to the world out there that it is possible to have an accessible building that is also a historic building. Engineers often tell us that things are very difficult or even impossible to put into practice, and that due to the cost factor, we shouldn't pay much attention to accessibility, but we have tried to show that it is possible if you show goodwill, if you have the technical expertise. I'd like to thank the My Ability team. Thanks for accompanying us throughout this process. And there's one more reason why we have opted for accessibility, for full-fledged accessibility. As I've already pointed out, this building is accessible, but it's more than accessibility. It's also about the mindset that needs to put into practice. A lot of people will have come to this event over the next few days. People from 80 different countries will join us here in Vienna. More than 1,000 people have registered. So, all of this is taking place in this newly renovated Parliament building. And we're also very much looking forward to and interested in the feedback that you'll be providing. It's very important to learn from you whether what we have put into practice is what you appreciate. So, it's about political participation. That's what the Zero Project Conference revolves around. Political participation is crucial. There are also members of the 5 Austrian parties represented here in the Austrian Parliament, and they will be able to make their ideas known a bit later. And we're very much looking forward in your feedback, you who have joined us here as guests, because we want to improve our standards. So we have an additional floor space of 10,000 square meters after the renovation work. This is not used by the members of parliament and the administrators. No, this is something that we have set aside for guests, whether it's the visitors or the people joining us in the restaurants or the so-called democracy workshop. We're very much welcoming guests here in this building. All the premises should be accessible, must be accessible for people who have all types of disabilities. So your feedback, as I've pointed out before, is crucial for us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, after 3 years of the pandemic and multiple crises that have hit us, let me just mention the terrible war of aggression waged by the Russian Federation against Ukraine. So after these 3 years, our society has changed. That's what we're seeing. And this applies to different areas. People have moved apart. There's enmity caused by the pandemic, and there's also a great deal of polarization within our societies. Things become more confrontational, more aggressive. So our job is to send out the right signals and to make sure that we can de-escalate. We want to ensure a peaceful and respectful social coexistence. And for us, you are a very important target group. People with disabilities know that they have not always been in a position to participate in society. They have not always been in a position to contribute to society. So there are a lot of people out there who feel left out, who have not joined societal processes. That's why we need to reintegrate those people and focus our attention on these people, on these marginalized people. We want to create a joint mindset. Now, having different viewpoints, that's important, and I certainly don't object to this. But of course, everything needs to be borne by respect, a respectful interaction. That's what we strive for. That is a guideline to be used by all of us. That's very important in our encounters. Of course, we cannot always comply with this criterion, but at least we try hard. And I think that if there's goodwill, this will be possible. I wish a wonderful conference, an interesting conference. I'm sure that a lot of interesting content will be presented. Thinking back, and the conferences and all the great projects that have been presented, and thinking back, I realized that a lot of impetus has been provided. Now, technological progress, of course, is very important and eases our lives. It's also very important to exchange our views during in-person meetings, exchange our views and ideas and experiences. Vienna and Austria wants to be a platform for all of these interaction, wants to be a center, wants to be in a position to connect people, and I'm already very much looking forward to next year's Zero Projects conference that will then take place for the 5th time in a row. This is a highlight for us, this conference. It takes place every year in February. I'd like to thank the organizers, all those that have collaborated. And I would also like to thank you very much for all the work that you carry out during the year. It's not just this event and other events where we meet and exchange ideas in a very respectful manner. It's also projects that are carried out throughout. I very much welcome the guests and people representing different companies so that this topic is addressed on a societal basis. Thank you very much, Martin Esslin. Thank you very much to all the others. Thanks for putting so many things into practice. The glass is not half empty, but half full. Of course, there is still a road ahead of us and work to be done, but we're very optimistic about the future. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for having listened to me. Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm quite sure that the glass will be full to the brim very soon. And this will be achieved if everyone is able to take part in society. A lot of people have accepted our invitation, which is great, and we're already looking forward to next year's event. This Parliament building as an important location for us. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and we're now looking forward to hearing more from the initiator of the Zero Project idea and the founder of the Essl Foundation. Martin Essl, you have the floor.
Sehr geehrter Herr
President of the Austrian National Council, Wolfgang Sobotka, members of Parliament, Secretary General of the Austrian Parliamentary Administration, Mr. Dossi, dear Charlotte McLean-Lappo, Global Disability Advisor of the World Bank, who's our keynote speaker today, representatives of public bodies and the civil society, of business, dear innovators, ladies and gentlemen, here at the plenary chamber of this beautifully renovated Austrian Parliament, ladies and gentlemen in front of the screens. It's always a very moving moment to be here in Parliament and to talk to you on the occasion of the opening event of our Zero Project Conference. I would like to take this opportunity and thank the Speaker of the Austrian Parliament for the invitation to be able to speak here for the 4th time on the occasion of this event. It's a real pleasure to be here in the newly renovated plenary chamber, and I would like to congratulate everyone who was responsible for putting into place all the accessibility measures. And thank you to you, dear Wolfgang, and to everyone who was readily available to improve things where they were not perfect. In many aspects, the Austrian Parliament is already a pioneer in this field today. For all those of you who cannot see me, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Martin Essl. I'm the founder of the ESSA Foundation and of the Zero Project Initiative. I'm a man of about 60 years of age with some gray hair. I'm wearing a dark suit, white shirt, and a green tie, which is a sign for our Zero Project Initiative. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, the ESSA Foundation has dedicated itself to implementing the rights of people with disabilities and the UN Convention, and we've built up a worldwide network of thousands of experts and organizations in due course. This has been happening for 10 years now, and we're trying to look into various innovations, build up networks so that everyone, persons with and without disabilities, has and can enjoy the same opportunities in our society. Why do we focus on innovation? Eminent solutions change the world, but in the social field, innovations are often hidden and aren't even known on a national scale. Through Zero Project, innovators are offered a global platform and a possibility to get in contact with decision makers in the political sphere, in business, science, civil society, and among themselves to get mutual inspiration and support each other mutually. This year, the Zero Project Conference is taking place in the premises of the United Nations here in Vienna, and we're going to present awards to 71 innovations from 42 countries for solutions that should allow all people an independent, alive, and political participation, but we're also going to present innovative IT solutions and innovations for inclusive art. Roughly 1,000 people from 80 countries, among them many people with disabilities, have registered for the conference. Some of you are present here today. Let me use this occasion and welcome a relatively large delegation from India and from Israel, and let me also welcome young people from all over the world. Welcome to you here today. Independent living and political participation, these are concepts that only exist on paper for many people with disabilities. Especially when we talk about political participation, equal access is often not available for people with disabilities. Be it participating in processes to build an opinion or the right to a secret ballot, this is often not possible. New technologies that are ever more present in this area can lead to improvements, but on the other hand, they can also lead to increasing discrimination. Together with the parliamentary administration, we have once again invited everyone to take a different and inspiring point of view. Members of parliament from the various political parties have agreed to support one innovation each and contribute to its implementation in Austria. Thank you for this. These are 5 new solutions supported by members of parliament. They and the innovators are at the focus of today's event. As a token of our long-standing relationship and cooperation, I'm pleased to give on loan, together with my wife, a piece of art by Wilfried Gerstler called Human Dignity is Inviolable. So this is given on loan to the Parliament. It's also provided with a line of Braille as a sign for accessibility, and it is on display in the foyer of room number 1, the Erwin Schrödinger room. This piece of art should remind everyone to treat each other with dignity and respect for the benefit of all. On behalf of Zero Project, I would like to thank Parliament again for today's event and also for inviting us to next year's event, on the occasion of which we are going to talk about inclusive education. Thank you very much.
Vielen lieben Dank, lieber Martin, für all das.
Thank you very much, Martin, for everything you and your team have done and are going to do in the future. With this, you have had a long-lasting, sustainable impact for many people here in Austria and the world over. We've seen in the last years that technology plays an important role, and that connecting experts from all over the world can also have an important impact, is shown by many things that have already been realized and implemented. And we're going to see this again today and are looking forward to the presentations. Before that, however, we are welcoming our keynote speaker, who's also going to show how important innovation is for society at large. Many innovations go back to someone reflecting how people could use new technologies, and this is for the benefit of all of us. And it's supposed to be like that. Our keynote speaker today is Charlotte McLean-Lapo, as Martin said. She's the Global Disability Advisor for the World Bank Group, and in this activity she's trying to include persons with disabilities in all projects. She has been a political advisor in the Obama administration for people with disabilities, and she's also been in the South African Human Rights Commission upon the invitation of Nelson Mandela, and we're now looking forward to her keynote. Welcome, Charlotte McLean-Lapo.
So, distinguished members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and privilege to provide this keynote in this august and accessible Parliament building. I have to say, it is spectacularly impressive and truly world-class. I want to thank Dr. Wolfgang Sobotka, the President of the Austrian National Parliament, for his generous invitation. I'm in Vienna this week to participate in the Zero Conference. And I'd like to take a moment to thank the organizers of the Zero Conference, and in particular, Martin Essel, for his and their constant and highly valued contribution to advancing disability inclusion across the globe. Today, I'm excited to learn more about the innovation interventions that will be presented. I look forward to hearing about their potential for transformative impact at both a systems level and at the level of the ultimate end user and beneficiary. As we gradually emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, we can reflect on and learn from the lived experience of persons with disabilities through the lens of opportunities and challenges they and their families endured over the last few years. This unprecedented period has exposed to the world the resilience, determination, creativity, and entrepreneurship of organizations of persons with disabilities to find workarounds, solutions, and innovative pathways. It also amplified the critical role of accessible technology, and in many ways, it helped us reimagine what is possible. The pandemic underscored disability inclusion as a powerful catalyst for innovation in several ways. Allow me to share 4 such areas that exemplify how disability inclusion catalyzes innovation. The first is design thinking. When companies and organizations focus on disability inclusion, they take a more empathetic approach to problem solving. They must consider the needs of persons with disabilities, which can lead to the development of innovative solutions that benefit not only persons with disabilities, but also the wider population. This approach is often referred to as design thinking. So the narrative about the power of accessible technology has universal design principles as its bedrock. These ideals of universal design and its innovations are most relevant today ever than before. The second area is through the use of assistive technology. And we know that there is a growing market for assistive technology that helps persons with disabilities perform tasks that may be difficult or impossible for them if they did not have that assistance. And this includes speech recognition, braille displays, and mobility aids. Companies, industry, and researchers that develop these technologies often find that they can be adapted for use in other contexts, leading to new products and services. I think you will all agree with me that during the pandemic, technology was a lifeline, a tool for learning, a means of productivity, and a necessity for accessing healthcare services. It became the way we connected with our families and our loved ones. It sustained us during this time of uncertainty and allowed us to normalize some aspects of life by enabling us to listen to our favorite opera, listen to our favorite concert, or listen to our favorite music. Today, digital technologies represent the fastest, broadest, and most profound technical change experienced in international development, affecting every sector. And we have witnessed firsthand how inclusive and accessible technology increases access by persons with disabilities to markets, spaces, and services. And this has then raised a number of things. It has certainly raised opportunities and the stakes to ensure that technology-driven development includes the diverse needs of persons with disabilities. The ability to use voice, text, touch, gestures to receive, create, and communicate has fundamentally altered how public and private sector actors engage and how they serve persons with disabilities. Over the last decade, we have seen many big and small innovations fueled by digital technologies across sectors. And these straddle the areas of education, employment, entrepreneurship, access to health, civic engagement, political participation, and social inclusion. However, digital innovations must be grounded in understanding their ecosystem. We also know that the potential for digital development is not the sole panacea for changing social norms and realizing the rights of persons with disabilities. And that for persons with disabilities to reap the maximum and optimal digital dividends, practitioners must pay attention to investments beyond technology and understand the constraints to the consumption of digital platforms for persons with disabilities. Relatedly, democratizing digital technology and ensuring meaningful inclusion of persons with disabilities requires us to understand the existence of elite capture by urban-based disability populations. This is all to say that technology has a social responsibility. It opens innovation opportunities by increasing affordability and decreasing access gaps in digital infrastructure, devices, and services. And as we know, Innovations can come in the shape of policy reform, licensing and subsidies, the design of social benefits, and in building the capacity of the user, providers, and facilitators such as teachers, bankers, city planners, election officials, and emergency responders. Now, the third area that I wanted to touch on is the area of the diversity of thought. Including persons with disabilities in innovation processes can bring diversity of thought and bring to bear a perspective that can lead to breakthroughs and creative solutions. In addition, persons with disabilities often have unique insights into the challenges people face in their communities, which can help companies and industry develop products and services to meet their needs. The fourth area is the area around market opportunities. And so we know that persons with disabilities represent a significant market opportunity, which is often overlooked by companies and investors. By ensuring disability inclusion, we can collectively tap into this market and support the development of new products and services that meet the needs of over 1 billion people. So, what are we doing at the World Bank to advance some of these disability-inclusive innovations? Given that we work primarily with low and middle-income countries, our work often requires testing and scaling innovation interventions that address complex challenges. We work in underserved populations, such as children with intellectual and learning disabilities, and we often work in high-risk contexts. In so doing, we strive to use innovations with the potential for catalytic impact and scale. Under the Inclusive Education Initiative, a program funded with support from the Norwegian government and the UK government, the World Bank awarded several innovation grants to address long-entrenched barriers that prevented children with disabilities from accessing school and having successful learning outcomes. It taught us that sometimes it's the simple innovations that lead to meaningful and sustainable change. For example, in Indonesia, we supported developing virtual links between rural families of children with disabilities to access professional support for early identification services from urban areas of Indonesia. While in China, we created storybooks depicting characters with disabilities to increase awareness and foster inclusion. And in Brazil, we ensured that accessible and safe routes for children with disabilities to travel from home to school were in place. We also invested in peer-to-peer and mentoring support network for teachers to facilitate inclusive education. So allow me to share with you a few instructive lessons gleaned from our projects. One, including persons with disabilities and organizations with persons with disabilities in stakeholder consultations during project preparation will inform project design and the need to have a twin-track activities to support the beneficiaries with disabilities in successfully using innovative solutions. Similarly, using a disability inclusion lens in feasibility studies and assessments before project design will help in a dialogue with the client and highlight the importance of accessibility and the need to address it. Capacity building of stakeholders, and especially frontline service providers, is essential, and this is something that we've learned from our projects. Similarly, strengthening the policy environment, reviewing and drafting legislation, and developing standards and national action plans on accessibility is often a required action. And ensuring active and sustained participation of organizations of persons with disabilities throughout the project cycle from design to implementation is critical. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, as we enter a period of polycrises, the war in Ukraine, protracted disruptions, and as we confront the harrowing aftermath of the Turkey-Syria earthquake, allow me to leave you with 3 key messages. The first message is that disability inclusion can be a powerful driver of innovation, leading to new products and services that benefit not only persons with disabilities, but also the wider population. Therefore, companies and organizations must embrace disability inclusion as a core value. My second message is that innovations must be conceptualized, invested in, designed, and piloted in partnership with persons with disabilities. They not only are best placed to identify their needs correctly, but they're often at the forefront of thinking through solutions. And my third message is that only diversity can provide sustainable and innovative solutions for an inclusive future, a future we want. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your insights and, of course, your great work and your advocacy. We, people with disabilities worldwide, appreciate it very much. So thank you very much for being in Vienna and contributing to the success of the conference. Wir haben also gehört, dass wenn man
We have heard that if you include the perspective of people with disabilities, this is to the benefit of all of our society at large when it comes to mastering the multitude of crises that we are facing. This is true for innovations, innovative solutions, and networking, and that's what we're going to talk about. And now we're going to present 5 solutions, innovative solutions that can show that people with disabilities can participate in politics if the right conditions are created and if inclusion in society is fostered. Now, how have these projects been selected? How is this process organized? I'm going to talk about this with Michael Fembeck. He's the Zero Project CEO. He's in charge of everything that's going to happen over the next few days. Welcome, Michael. You are going to receive a mic, and we're going to talk about the 5 solutions that have been selected for today. You've had hundreds of submissions. How did you select these 5? Yes, we had about 350 solutions that were submitted. We've developed a selection process over 10 years now with 4 steps to select those projects that are then presented and described in the Zero Project report as a final outcome. Now the question is, how do you get down from 71 projects to 5, to the 5 that are going to be presented today? It's a bit like a manual parship process. You have many innovations, and then you have 5 MPs that have shown their interest in supporting projects. And this works as follows. The members of parliament receive a short list of projects that we believe could be useful for the Austrian situations. The MPs then talk with us. Usually they give us 1 or several suggestions. We then go back to the project leaders, talk to them. Would you be ready to come to Parliament? Most people happily accept the invitation. And then the final step is that members of Parliament also pledge to support the implementation of these projects in Austria. And that's then the end of the preparatory phase, followed by a webinar in which we discuss the pledges made. This has worked very well in recent years, and we're also going to hear more of it today. Final question to you. What are you looking forward to in particular for the next days? Answer, well, we're active throughout the year for the Zero project. We're trying to develop the conference further. For example, this year we have a youth delegation with 17 young people from 7 countries and 4 continents are joining us. Some of them are here today. And they are accompanied during the conference. Then we have representatives from politics. It's a policy maker forum with representatives from the ITU and other international organizations. They present their innovations, and so we're always looking forward to this. It's going to be a few fascinating days. Thank you very much, Michael Fembeck. Now, let us continue. We've heard that this is a perfect match, and the matchmaking has been successful. The first solution is coming from Sweden, and we're going to continue as follows. A member of parliament is going to briefly present a project, present its advantages. Then there's going to be a short video, and then the project promoters, those who have developed the project, will have an opportunity to present their project. And then there's going to be a short Q&A session led by our experts here on the podium. And then we're going to talk about the next steps planned for the implementation of the project. We're going to start with a project from Sweden, Studieförbundet Vuxenskolan, My Choice, My Decision. And the presenter is Fiona Fiedler. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, dear Martin Essel, Charlotte McLean-Lappo, dear participants. Now, it's a pleasure to welcome you all in the old and new Parliament building. Welcome to all of you. Now, for all those with visual disabilities, I'm a rather tall woman with reddish hair, and I wear a black pantsuit. Due to the COVID pandemic, I was not able to join you last year, and that's why it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you to the 4th kickoff event of the Zero Project Conference. My thanks go to all the organizers, the people behind the scenes, and in the foreground as well. You're doing a great job putting together and organizing such an event is very important, and I think that we are achieving greater inclusion by coming up with this these events. Now, we now turn to the Swedish project, which is about people with disabilities and their voting rights. Now, I don't want to anticipate what Kjell Holm will say, but it's very important, of course, for us to make sure that people with disabilities can move center stage. Now, autonomous lives are not always possible, and we are still a far cry from a truly inclusive society. And this is unacceptable for us. We want to achieve greater, and we have to achieve greater inclusion. I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about the project.
Via study circles, Studieförbundet Vuxenskolan from Sweden makes it easier for people with intellectual disabilities to access political processes. For example, SV has developed a method of conveying the concerns of voters with disabilities to their representatives.
Das war das kurze Einführungsvideo und jetzt.
So that was a short introductory video. And Kjell Stjernholm will now present the project to us. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you all for having me. There is a presentation that is supposed to be somewhere. There it is. All right. The NGO that I'm from is the biggest on disability participation in lifelong learning activities and arts, and close allies with FUB. That's the Organization for People with Intellectual Disabilities in Sweden. And it is together with FUB that we have created our method. We agreed on this analysis that made My Choice, My Election a success. It's no use to instruct people on how to vote if you are not allowed to understand what we are voting about. So the very politics must be made accessible. And this is how we do it. My Choice, My Election is a study circle on democracy. We learn why and how we vote and the different levels of political responsibility. We troubleshoot the different obstacles that could stand between the individual and successful participation, and we practice in role play how to vote. Once the participants start asking questions on what a certain party wants to do, we do not answer. Instead, we connect them to political parties and politicians for direct answers and/or easy-read editorial sources. Thereby, we never ever influence our participants on their choices. The very last week before election, we arranged easy-to-understand political discussions all over Sweden. The participants of My Choice, My Election runs the show and asks the questions. The politicians undertake 1 hour of training on how to lower the language barrier prior to participating. That is, they learn the principles of easy read. Every year, we upgrade our method. New this year, top left green corner. Guess what party? It's an original idea based upon participant feedback on how hard it is to know what politician speaks for what party. We created a simple memory game digitally that also can be programmed for local level. Click the politician, then click the logo of his or her party. If correct, green. If not, red. Try again? Sure, click the red marked politician to reset that choice and have a new try. It's a learning game. Top right blue corner. Click the map of the society and then answer the question, who's in charge of this politically? Municipality, regional, or national parliament. Questions and answers in easy read are voice recorded if support is needed. Bottom left white corner. Facebook questions online for politicians to answer. Parties are tagged and given the opportunity to respond. And bottom left yellow corner, image support on politics and election was produced on demand from study circle leaders. The image support has multiple use: to support the topic for the moment or as an educational tool. What subject are you most concerned about? Who's in charge of that? Let's have a quiz on politics. And the method works. Previous studies show a voter participation of people with intellectual disability to be 20 to 43%. But for the participants in My Choice, My Election, the voter turnout is 85% and tops the general average of Swedish voters. Voter participation for Sweden as a nation is 84.2. The 15% not voting also shared why. Half of them missed the election due to lack of support on election day. So, if their carers and staff had performed in a way the convention right grants people with disability, the voter turnout would have been even better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Sterholm. We will do the asking round in English so that you can answer more easily. Julia Moser will ask the first question. She's a CEO for Light for the World, an international disability advocacy group. She's the CEO for Light for the World Austria. Julia, your question.
Thank you very much and good morning. Thanks so much for presenting your project. I'm very impressed by it because to me it seems like a fairly effective solution that is fairly easily accessible and quite simple in the end, which I think is very important when we want to foster inclusion. And my question is that when participants first join the learning circles, what the proportion of active voters, of persons who first join the learning circles, and does this proportion change over time?
Well, the easy answer is that we don't know, but maybe we will know, because the political science department on Uppsala University has been awarded grants for a 3-year study on my choice, my election as a model for inclusion. So we might be able to get those answers. But important to us as an NGO of learning is that we do not judge whether you should have a spot on in our classes or not. If you want it, you can have it. And that means that you could, for example, have had a previous voter experience, but it's still very hard to access what the politicians want in this election, right? The very politics need to be accessible as well. So we are not we are saying welcome to everyone that wants or need help to be able to understand and participate in the election.
Thank you very much for the first answer, very insightful. And the second question will be asked by Katharina Pranes. She's a peer group coach and has a question prepared for you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katharina. So she asked it in German, but which processes from these learning circles can be taken over to inform all the people about politics?
Well, a few weeks prior to the election in Sweden this fall, there was a study showing that half of the Swedes didn't know which political level had the responsibility for the healthcare, for the hospitals. So probably half of the Swedish people would benefit from playing one of our games. And you could say that if you study this, the knowledge before entering the election, I would say that probably a lot of the participants in my choice, my election, are better prepared to go into the election booth than most Swedes are. Of course, we have no facts to underline that, but just how many people do actually know how our democracy works? We have plenty of evidence all year round that a lot of people do not know, right? So they are very well prepared. But also, there is a PISA study showing that 13% of the population in OECD countries need easy read to be able to understand the message. So that's clearly a lot more than in Sweden. We have like 1% of the population enrolled in special schools. So there are 12% more, right? Could be people that are new to Swedish language, but also they say that every fourth Swede can't read a news article and then tell back what it said, right? So the literacy skills and the reading skills and the understanding of the language are hard things. And maybe a politician doesn't always want to be understood in a very concrete, decisive way. So there are heaps of things to be done, and I think heaps of learning to be made in common, whether you have a disability or not.
Thank you very much for the answer and for your insights. We are reaping the consequences of us and the society not understanding our democracies and how it works. So thank you for showing us an easy way, way that is gamified to understand our democracies. Thank you very much. Zum Abschluss hat Fiona Fiedler.
Fiona Fiedler now talks about gamification and how this can be put into practice together with an understanding of politics in Austria. Fiona. Well, thank you very much, Shell, for your presentation. It's very important to make people realize that their fundamental right is the right to vote because of a physical or mental disability. You must not be precluded from this. As an Austrian MP, it's my goal to improve the situation for people with disabilities because everyone is entitled to an autonomous life and equal participation. This includes political participation. Our Constitution says that all citizens are equal before the law and no one must be discriminated against because of their disability. So politicians are committed to make sure that everyone is treated equally, people with disabilities and without disabilities. We must put this into practice. So following this event, we'll take part in a roundtable discussion to talk with stakeholders from various areas. And we'll talk about how to put all of this into practice. Shell's Swedish project should be established in Austria as well because inclusion is a human right. So with this in mind, I wish all of us an interesting event, and I'm very much looking forward to the next innovations, presentations, and to the entire conference, as well as lots of talks with all of you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Fiona Fiedler, and I'm looking forward to the rollout of this project in all of Austrian schools so that people understand politics better. You know, they should know more about what the national level, the regional level, and the municipal level are responsible for. There's still some room for improvement in Austria. We now move over to Germany. North Rhine-Westphalia, the land of North Rhine-Westphalia. Political decisions affect all areas of life and people with disabilities. For example, parenthood. Mobile EV tries to put into practice accompanied partnership. MP Kira Grünberg will now present this project to us. Following this, we'll watch a video and ask those responsible for the project to briefly take the floor. Thank you. Now, during their lives, many people want to marry and have children, and the same goes for people with disabilities because, and often there are unwanted pregnancies, and this affects people with and without disabilities. It's a major challenge as a parent to suddenly be responsible for your child. A lot of families hit a number of obstacles and don't really know how to overcome difficulties. But what about parents with intellectual disabilities? What kind of support do they need and do they get, and how do they manage to be good parents and to have a well-structured and well-organized family life? So this is what this project is all about. This project coming from Germany. And I'm very much looking forward to learning more about this important project that comes from North Rhine-Westphalia.
By providing education on life skills, teaching, and childcare, the Mobile project, accompanied parenthood, supports 8 to 12 parents with intellectual disabilities per year in raising their children at home since 2006.
Und Näheres dazu erfahren wir jetzt von Ulla.
And Ulla Riesberg from Mobile EV will now present the project to us. Ulla Riesberg, you have the floor. Thank you. Since 2005, Mobile EV has provided help for parents with intellectual disabilities in their interaction with their children. The goal is to support parents and children and to make it possible for them to rear their children competently, to enhance the parents' skills and literacy. Accompanied parenthood means that we accompany parents already during pregnancy up to the level of maturity. Children are given support, and this includes collaboration with midwives, pediatricians, schools, daycare centers. A lot of needs are covered by the project: care, support, development and education of children, as well as everyday household chores, coming up with structures for weeks and months. So parents are also given support. They are reintegrated into society as people with intellectual disabilities. From 2018 to 2020, Mobile came up with guidelines, quality standards for accompanied parenthood in North Rhine-Westphalia, cooperating with academia and practitioners. The goal of the project was to develop quality standards for the support of parents with intellectual disabilities. On this basis, we wanted to disseminate offers submitted to families all over Germany. Quality standards are based on the parents' views, based on interviews and workshops carried out with parents into rural areas in North Rhine-Westphalia during the project when building up our offer. So they were supported, these rural areas. It was shown that it's very important for parents with intellectual disabilities to be sensitized. So a lot of awareness raising was important. And who is responsible? Is it Jugendhilfe or Behindertenhilfe, meaning organizations for young people, organizations for people with disabilities? So staff members of both of these state bodies should learn more about the offer. They should learn more about what help is available. Now, in order to make sure that there's easy access to quality standards and information related to the project, an online portal was set up, which is geared towards skilled workers, executives. It helps them reflect on their own work, and it helps them come up with additional offers. It contains 12 support guidelines, material and reflection questions for skilled workers, a map of North Rhine-Westphalia, information and material for parents, as well as scientific findings. Much of this information relates to cost units and responsibilities, and this applies to Germany. But this portal also offers educational support. It offers support that could also be interesting for other countries. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Riesberg. 2 questions. The first one will be presented by Erich Schmidt, who represents the Austrian Association of People with Disabilities. Now, I'm a former teacher. I taught at a school as well as a boarding school, so I would be very much interested in the following. How do you make sure that teachers cooperate with social workers, the different stakeholders? How do you ensure coordination? And what are the challenges that you're facing? Thank you. Well, we have teams of 2 in the families. We've got social educators, social workers, or teachers that get together, and this has been important from the word go. So we only work with people who have expertise in their work with people with disabilities. And that's why we also made sure that there were teachers, because we wanted to have experts relating to disability as well as experts relating to education. So we consider ourselves a team. We cooperate very closely, the different disciplines, and I don't think that there are major challenges. Cooperation works really well. That sounds very promising. Thank you very much. Christine Steger, the chairperson of the monitoring committee, also has a question. Well, it's great to learn more about this project as a monitoring committee. We have provided ample comments on partnership and family, and this is what accompanied parenting is all about. So great to learn more about this. Now, what are the main aspects, according to you, that have made sure that this project is a success? When it comes to putting things into practice or taking over things in Austria, are there things that we need to take into consideration so that things run smoothly in Austria as well? Any lessons learned? Well, what has struck us is that parenting for people with intellectual disability, well, this is an issue where you need to raise awareness. I mean, I've worked in this area for a long time, and that's why I take it for granted. I want people with intellectual abilities to have children just like any other members of the society. Sometimes you lose sight of the fact that this is a sensitive issue that people know very little about. People are concerned, people are afraid. That's what we have learned during our project. But it's very important to allay people's concerns and ease their fear. This is what we've realized in cooperating and working with people with disabilities and young people. So there are a lot of concerns, there are a lot of prejudices, and you need to overcome that. You need to get together with the state bodies responsible for people with disabilities and young people or children. And that's what we realized during the pilot phase. You know, sometimes we only worked with the disability people, and sometimes we only worked with the child welfare people, but we need the expertise of both disciplines. We need their experiences, and it's only this way that you can come up with funding. And then, of course, policymakers also have an influence when it comes to negotiations. Things get off the ground only if politicians join us, and that's very important to have policymakers on board. Thank you very much for providing us with a lot of insights, and my thanks go to Christine Steger and Erich Schmidt. Thanks for asking the right questions. So it's good to know that policymakers are in support. Just like in Austria, there is a great deal of support from policymakers, and Kira Grünberg will now talk about the next steps to be taken. Well, thank you very much for presenting the project to us. As you've already said, it's key to raise awareness. There are families, there are parents out there who have intellectual disabilities. It's important to support these families. So the first step has already been taken. We are now informing people about this project. We'll have a round table devoted to this issue, bringing together Austrian stakeholders so that we can shed light on the situation prevailing in Austria. We want to devise the right solutions in Austria. Mobile EV will provide us with their input and expertise, which is very important. So we need to make sure that all the stakeholders get together. There must be networking, and we as MPs can make our contribution so that things can progress in Austria. And we need to support organizations. And then, of course, there also needs to be the political commitment. And if you have the political commitment, you can put things into practice. My thanks go to Kira Grünberg and to all others. Now we move from Germany to Austria, which is solution number 3.
Frau Abgeordnete zum Nationalrat Rosa Ecker und
Rosa Ecker is going to present the innovation, and then Die Berater are going to present their solution as well, Avatar for Interaction. Dear organizer, innovators, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests here at the Parliament, I'm delighted that we have a chance to get to know so many innovative and interesting projects that are characterized by innovative technology, creativity, and so on. With all these innovations, there is the hope that we will be able to move forward to work on improving accessibility also in this country, and we know that there remain many things to be done. I'm stepping in here today for my colleague, the colleague in charge of disability questions for our party, and we hope that this is also going to promote the inclusion of children with disabilities in schooling. We know that many children, for various reasons, cannot be physically present in school, work together with their fellow pupils. About 18,000 pupils in Austria are affected by this, and the COVID pandemic has shown what it does to young people when they have to sit at home alone, when there's only digital education, no contact with other people, and the health, psychological, social consequences. These are things we haven't yet been able to analyze. So we have to strive for doing whatever is possible to include young people in school life, especially for young children with disabilities. And so we have selected a project of interactive avatars, and the developers, the Berater, the consultants, are convinced that this is a solution that is able to face this challenge.
Berater Unternehmensberatung GmbH from Austria has been offering education with the help of physical robots, so-called avatars, since 2020. Targeting children who cannot go to school, the avatars are usually placed in the classroom and can be personalized.
Einblick in die Avatar.
This is a short insight into the project. Martin Rösner from Die Berater is going to present a personalized example of one of these, or actually two of these avatars. Welcome. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you also to the Zero Project organization for the award. We are very honored. As we've heard, 18,000 children with long-term illnesses are not able to go to school for 6 to 7 weeks or even throughout the school year. So they're separated from their little friends. They cannot participate physically in education, and also social participation, of course, is not possible for them. We've been working in Austrian hospitals with the medical university and the St. Anna Children's Hospital for more than 20 years, so we know the target group very well. We've talked to people in hospitals and have then developed these avatars. Let me show them to you. This is the kind of avatar that a child is given to clean-faced, so to speak. Then the child receives colors or whatever. They can do whatever they want with the avatar, which is just a tool for them. And this is, for example, what the avatar of a young girl looks like. The girl has now been able to go back to school. And so this is a unique example of this avatar. And this brings me to the actual topic. The avatars are personalized by the children themselves, their fellow Pupils take care of the avatar. In class, they make sure that the avatar is charged. The child then can connect to the classroom via an app, via the eyes, gestures, and mimicking can be controlled. The avatar can turn its head so the child can see whatever is happening in the classroom. And another thing that's important, there's a one-way camera position, meaning that the child and its privacy are protected, so there's no possibility to see the child at home. It's about education, but it's also about leisure time, about breaks, about going on school excursions, and so on. And another thing we're very pleased about is that we're cooperating with many other organizations. So what is happening with avatars during school holidays or on weekends? Well, they're used in cases, for example, to connect families. One avatar on last week was in the children's opera event. Two other avatars were watching a football match. So there are many things where we can use them. We have many children who are ill. About 120 children have been able to use avatars by now, and this includes all levels from primary school up to the school leaving level. What we need is to make the project even more known. Families that are in this situation need to know that the avatars are able. And I'm about to close. This is something that must be free of charge to families. There must not be any financial barrier. And the second aspect, of course, is we are a private company. It's not up to us to decide for which child, for which type of illness the avatar is appropriate. We have experts for this. This is always done in cooperation with the schools, with the hospitals, doctors. So everyone is on board and is supporting us in implementing this project. Thank you very much. Many thanks, Martin Rösner. Let us just describe the avatars for those who cannot see them. The first one is white, clean, you said. The second one has been personalized with rainbow colors. It's very nice to look at. We have a few questions for you as well. Franz Josef Weinig from the public broadcaster in Austria, ORF, is going to ask the first question. Yes, it's a very fascinating project, but maybe I can ask a critical question. Does this really foster inclusion? I think it rather incites children to stay at home. Maybe there's no incentive for children to go back into the classroom. And a second question, if I may. Did you think of using avatars outside the classroom? Say, could I stay at home for a year and then the avatar is just sitting next to me as a personalized companion with a body and wheels and what have you? Is that something you're thinking about, or would you consider using avatars in events? How could that work? Thank you for the questions. Now in our project we have considered many scientific studies, European and international studies. We've also participated in some of them. The first outcomes are going to be presented soon, and I do understand your concern, but I can assure you that the children we are working with, all they wish for is going back to the classroom. The avatar allows them to be linked and connected with their friends. There's even a whispering mode which allows them to just chat with their little friends during a break, and the teacher cannot overhear them. So the aim is always to have active participation. We also ask for feedback from parents who tell us my kid has started enjoying things again, is laughing again. So far, we've only had very positive feedback. And to give you a final answer, as I said, we are not the ones who take the decision who is using an avatar. These kids are looked after and accompanied on a permanent basis also by experts from hospitals, psychologists, and so on. And I do expect them to let us know if an avatar has a counterproductive effect on the child. Thank you very much. Gregor Demblin, the founder of MyAbility, has another question for you. Thank you for this fascinating presentation. I am a fan of the opportunities that digitization and technical innovations offer to people with disabilities. In particular, I think this can be a real game changer for persons with disability. But I also see the limits that you have when persons with disability don't get where they should get to. But this is a trend that is probably going to be happening also for society at large. Remote communication, for example, not being in a room with other people. So what are the next steps? What are you going to do or think about in the future? For example, robots that are going to take part in physical education and so on? Of course, we're thinking of developing the project further, but this also brings me to its limits. It's not about what can technology do, but what do we need? What we need is communication with a group in school and during leisure time with family members. So we do not need any sophisticated features, the avatar being able to write WhatsApp messages or something like that. What counts is that you have communication in the teaching situation. How can you support inclusion in the classroom? With the TGM, for example, we've started a research project in which young people are developing an app. They're in the same age class as the children that are at home because of an illness, and this is supposed to give more support and to avoid going in the wrong direction by including the right age groups. I think avatars should be available in Austrian schools so as to be able to use them whenever the need arises and to increase social participation in a period when young people have a difficult time and can do with all the support they can get, especially support from their own friends. Thank you very much, Mr. Rösner. Thank you, Gregor. Thank you, Franz Josef. So I hope that my avatar is going to take over my swimming lessons while I'm here moderating events is probably not going to come true. But Mr. Rösner says you can put it in water. We saw that during the football game lately. And we're now going to hear about the next steps by Ms. Rosa Ecker.
Ich bedanke mich sehr herzlich für die detailreiche Vorstellung.
Thank you very much for the detailed presentation. I think that these personalized robots with their colors can be an asset for life in a classroom because it allows to include children in the life of a classroom. And I think this can really be an asset and a benefit for the class itself, but also for the child that has to stay at home. So it's definitely worth continuing the project, and there is a pilot project currently underway, so we know there is some expert knowledge. I would like to thank you again for the creative approach and be assured of our support. Let us bring some life into the classroom. Thank you very much to Rosa Ecker, and thank you to Die Berater for their project, which has already started in Austria, and it's in any case good to make the project more known. It's important to know about the importance of projects like that. We're now moving away from Austria and to Israel, to a project which is about supporting persons to raise their voice. Heike Grebien is going to present the project from Israel to us. Dear guests here in our new Parliament plenary hall, I'm pleased to see you, feel you, be able to touch you and to talk to you in person after 3 years of pandemic. And it's a pleasure to see how many international guests, persons with and without disabilities, are here and will participate in the conference over the next years. I'm always fascinated by the various innovations. It's always very, very difficult to select one among many, and I would like to thank the organizers for their help in making my selection. As you know, persons with disabilities, and especially people with learning challenges and or the need for more support, sometimes have issues with self consciousness. They sometimes feel they cannot achieve as many things as others, and also the outside world sometimes have some doubts as to their capacities. But it's actually themselves who know best what they need. And so the question is, how can we make sure that persons with the learning difficulties empower themselves, get into contact with others, and can become self-advocates and advocates for their community? I think the method of empowerment is a central method here. So we're not talking in this case about a technology. Today we've heard that very often simple solutions can make a huge contribution, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is something I want the innovators from Israel to explain to you in person, the innovators from Beit Isi Shapiro.
Beit Isi Shapiro and Israel Elwin, both from Israel, launched an advocacy and leadership program for people with intellectual disabilities in 2011. By 2022, the number of self-advocates increased from 20 to 150, and the Israeli government regularly requests their input.
And now they will tell us that Lilach Bar and Abed Daka from Beit Isi Shapiro. Please come to us, and we are looking forward to your presentation.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting us. It is very exciting to be here and represent our self-advocacy program. We are Abed and Lilach, and this program is developed by two organizations in Israel, Beit Isi Shapiro and Israel Elwin. Article 29 of the UN CRPD states that people with disabilities have the right to full and effective participation and inclusion in society. Our self-advocacy program aims to ensure that people with intellectual disabilities can access this right and participate in decision-making processes about their lives. The program is made up of 10 regional groups and 1 national group of representatives from each region. We provide group participants with training which give them tools to be group leaders. Each group is also accompanied by a facilitator who is a person without disability who also goes through training. The national group is engaged in advancing national policy to benefit all people with intellectual disabilities across the country. Our unique approach. The emphasis on working as a group allows members to benefit from the power of common action rather than individual action. And the group focuses its efforts at the national level to create policy change that benefits all people with disabilities in Israel. The group's biggest success has been the amendment of the legal guardianship law. The group members participated in 2016 in discussions in Parliament and represented the needs of people with intellectual disabilities. Thanks to this group, adults with disabilities now have the right to supported decision-making rather than automatic full guardianship. This has major impact and allows people with disabilities to make decisions for themselves. The pictures here show group members at Israeli Parliament and in discussions about the law.
Finally, I want to share with you, as one of the facilitators of this group, I accompanied them from day one. I want to share with you the social and personal impact of this program, of this group. First of all, each group member has developed a strong sense of personal empowerment and capability. When I remember when the first year of this program, people who participated in our program, they didn't have the capability. They didn't sense that they are able to change. They are able to speak for themselves. And today, I think every member of this group, of this national group, has developed a strong sense of capability, a strong sense of thinking that I can speak for myself. I can tell what's better for me. The second impact is as group. During the years, they learned that as group they have greater power, not only as a member, but a great power that they can change, not only on their personal aspect, but also in the national aspect. And the third thing that this group, this national group, became today they became as a consultant for the government, for decision makers, for policy makers all around Israel. I think now, whenever one of the decision makers, one of the legislatives think about a law, about improving or changing a law, they consider them as a consultant and they consult with them, and they are very proud that they become a consultant for the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We also have some questions for you. The first one is from Bernadette Feuerstein. She is from Selbstbestimmt Leben, which is an initiative that also represents people with disabilities. Dear Bernadette, your question.
Thank you very much for this fascinating project. In Austria, we very often see that independent initiatives and advocacy groups have to fight very hard to be included in political processes in the first place, to be invited to participate. But then very often, unfortunately, we see that many experts have been very committed the actual implementation happens without their voice being heard. So political decision makers do not always consider their contribution. So my question is, how do you select the participants of this program? And secondly, how do you make sure that the self-advocates, the experts, are actually heard, that their contribution doesn't end up in some drawer somewhere, but that it's actually taken into consideration and implemented? And the moderator is translating the question once again.
To be heard, and also when they are heard, it's hard for them to make sure that their opinions and their expertise is put into political action, and that the decision makers really listen and take into action what they say. And the question was, how do you choose the participants for the group, and how do you make sure that they are really heard by the government and they are really put into action what the experts are saying?
Okay. Well, that's a great question, and one that we ask ourselves as well. Regarding how participants are chosen, well, anyone interested in joining one of the regional groups can do so. They will go through a personal interview, but whoever is interested in taking on this role and being involved is welcome and able to join. Then from each regional group, 2 representatives are chosen, and they make the national group, who represent the population of people with intellectual disabilities in discussion processes with decision makers. When we need to choose representatives for a specific discussion or meeting, the group holds democratic elections to choose which members will take part. Or the whole group of 15 members will participate whenever this is possible. And regarding the responsibility of decision makers in implement changes, unfortunately, we don't currently have a way to require that decision makers include people with disabilities in political processes. As we shared, our national group is recognized and respected as consultants, and today we see that decision makers do turn to the group and ask for their consultation on various issues. These decision makers have learned that doing so is effective and that hearing the people's voice is important. 2 ideas we would love to develop together with you, and maybe we can discuss it in our roundtable session soon. The first is a training for decision makers, which will give them knowledge and tools for them to feel confident to include people with disabilities in decision-making processes. And the second are potential mechanisms that can require the participation of people with disabilities in these processes, such as a potential law or regulations. We would love to learn how this works here in Austria and to think together how we could advance these concepts in both our countries. Do you want to add? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have a second question coming from Hannah Kamrat from self-representation as well. Liebe Hannah.
Let me introduce myself. I'm the chair of the Association for People with Learning Difficulties. Question number 1, what about easy language? We often have the difficulty that this is not made available. Second question, how do you consider a networking event between our 2 countries?
Understand the language, are there processes so that everyone can participate even with a learning disability? And the second one is, how do you think the connection between Israel and Austria can work regarding this project?
Okay, first of all, the group meets every 2 weeks, and they have accompanied with the facilitators. The facilitator is also, we put them in a process that they learn how to be accessible for the people with intellectual disability, in terms of speaking, in terms of how to speak with them, how to make things easy for them. So we give them the tools and I think during the years, also the decision makers, the legislatives have learned that they have to be accessible for people with intellectual disability. So I think the mission is not easy, but still it's during the years it's easy. And I think because of this learning, the people with intellectual disability, especially in our national group, during the years they learned how to ask the questions, how to make people be accessible. Now they have the ability to, if someone talk with them and they don't understand, they ask him, be accessible, explain to me. So it makes our job easy. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Regarding the partnership between Austria and Israel, we are really excited about this idea. At the first step, we will need to address this question to the group members themselves. They will make a decision as if and how a continued conversation will work best for them. I can already tell you that virtual meetings such as Zoom are not very accessible for some of the members and could possibly be challenging. But I assume that the group would love to continue a further relationship because they really appreciate working in partnerships with other actors in the field. Beyond that, we are looking forward to hearing more from you and other stakeholders from the Austrian community and think together about potential directions for collaboration. And I'm sure we'll come up with some good and meaningful solutions.
Thank you very much, Lilach Bar and Abed Daka, for presenting your advocacy program. I see a lot of traveling between Israel and Austria in the future. Thank you very much. I will come to Israel. I'm looking forward. Not in the winter. Perfect. Good to know. Danke auch an Bernadette und Hannah und.
Thank you again to Bernadette and Hannah as well. We heard that there's going to be a roundtable, and now we're going to hear about the next steps. Yes, I think this has been raised already, the topics we're going to discuss in the roundtable. And let me just tell everyone we have 2 or 3 free spots for our roundtable, and I would be delighted if you want to come up after the event and volunteer for the roundtable. I think we can learn a lot from each other. We have our own advocacy groups in Austria. That's not the problem, but the question is how do you ensure representation of people with learning disabilities? It's important to know who's out there, who can I contact when I'm working on a new bill, so that we can really take into consideration all forms of disability. And I'm very much looking forward to the roundtable. Thank you very much. I think we've also learned how important it is to have a strong voice and to maybe make these processes binding, to make sure that these voices are heard on a permanent basis and not just on some selected questions. Let's move back to Austria, also with regard to something that goes beyond political participation and goes into the cultural sphere, something that has to do with music. And the Member of Parliament, Christian Oksonich, is going to present the initiative.
Dear guests from Austria and abroad, Vienna considers itself a city of culture. Wiener Concertos, the Vienna Concert Hall, is an integral part of our cultural landscape. But gaining access to culture and knowing about inclusion and participation, well, this knowledge is not all that present in the cultural landscape, which is great. Or it's great to see, therefore, that Wiener Konzerthaus is now reaching out to new target groups. It provides information about its cultural offering in easy language. I come from Vienna. A few years ago, Wiener Konzerthaus really provided an important impetus. It started cooperating with Manfred Grubinger, a percussionist, working with children from the 16th district in Vienna, where you have a lot of people having a migration background. And then there was a concert bringing together the percussionists as well as 1,000 children and young people. This is a project that has revolved around inclusion, and it's great to see that there is someone responsible for Wiener Konzerthaus who will now present the project. Let's first take a look at a video, and then Matthias Naske from Wiener Konzerthaus will take the floor.
The Wiener Konzerthaus, one of the leading concert halls in Austria, has been organizing summer music workshops for up to 80 participants. The program is supervised by professional music educators and is free of charge.
Welcome, Matthias Naske. Very much looking forward to your short presentation. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, dear members of Parliament, Mr. Essel, it's great to be here. It's impressive to see how much technical innovation there is going on. Now, we are not technology-driven, but driven by social design for 110 years. We have been around. Wiener Konzerthaus has been trying very hard to achieve cultural participation and involvement for 110 years. Now we are structured by way of a private association. The only equity we have is our building, if you like, Wiener Konzerthaus. And we're trying to reach out to as many people as possible. And it is important to reach out to as many people as possible. Maybe we don't actually deserve this respect because this is something that we take for granted anyway. We are innovation-driven, as I said before, and that's why we try to be honest brokers and we try to establish contact to as many people as possible. So we enhanced accessibility of our building a few years ago. And today we are able to say that we offer all the aesthetic features that a concert hall has or should have. And we focus very much on inclusion. We ask eminent musicians to establish social spaces, more tolerant social spaces, if I can call it this way, to share art and music with people. This series of events is called Klang berührt, sounds move us, liberally translated. For a number of years now, for 5 years now, we've had summer music weeks. And during the summer music weeks, we have about 100 people that get together, people with and without disabilities, to exchange their experiences and work together with professional musicians. It's a 5-day event. It's a rather privileged setting, if you like, because the project takes place in the entire building. So people make music together and people's needs are considered. All of people's special needs are considered. And we're very happy to be able to share musical excellence, to share the processes that are taking place in this area. And as a human being, every year, and this has gone on for 5 years, this moves me a lot, whatever goes on stage. This is just part of the whole process. Mind you, a lot of things also happen behind the scenes. I don't deserve all this respect and acknowledgement because we do our job that we need to do. We've learned a lot, and we're very much willing to share with others how we have put into practice this principle of participation. Well, you take things for granted. For you, it's something natural, but a lot of people don't. Rudolf Cavagna wants a lot of people to join these activities. Well, I've watched this video also online. It's great to see the children get together with older people. It's a very inclusive project, of course. Young people, old people get together, people with and without disabilities. So, what about the musicians' knowledge and expertise? And what's the share of young people, old people, people with and without disabilities? Well, participation is entirely voluntary. So people have a very positive mindset. We are inviting about 100 people. Half of them have a disability and half of them don't. As a team, we have learned a lot. But really, it boils down to the following question. Are you willing to learn? We've reached out to associations, and if you provide experts with spaces, and that's what we do, things actually look quite promising. So, Vienna Concertos has been around for 110 years, and it's a magical building, and this magic is part of the quality that we observe. So why don't you come and have a look? It will be available, publicly accessible as of July. Heidemarie Egger also asks a question now. It's great to see that this project has been singled out. I've been able to disseminate information about this project for a long time. I think it's a wonderful project. A lot of organizations and cultural institutions balk at the degree of complexity. You know, it's an intersectional project. It's a very diverse project. How do you meet those concerns? What's the value added of this project? Well, there's a tremendous value added, and it works really well, this project. So there's a professional dimension, if you like, the function fulfilled by our cultural institution, and then there is the emotional aspect. And if we are in a position to open up musical spaces for people, that has a tremendous impact, and this is also reflected by the team and the joy experienced by the team. Now, a project like this is successful if you do it together with those people and not for stakeholders, with the stakeholders. That has been an important learning curve for us, and we're quite confident that we'll be successful in the future as well. And thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much, Matthias Naske. My thanks go to Heidemarie Egger and Rudolf Cavagna. Now, doing things together, this is what it's all about. 1 or 2 years ago, I shared the story with you. When I was 12 years old and saw my brothers who played the piano and guitar and the mandolin, well, and there was me with just one arm, and my parents realized that I wanted to play a musical instrument too, and they didn't know what I should use. So they got together with a music teacher, and he said, well, you know, what is possible with one arm, and that's why I started playing the trumpet. And I then started playing music with my brothers and others, and then I stopped because I was not a very gifted musician. But then it's all about putting things into practice, creating spaces, doing things together, not being isolated in whatever you do. In, for example, making music. This is very important, and this also has quite an impact on social inclusion, even if it's not a complex undertaking or a technology-driven process. All right, thank you very much. And now some concluding comments to be made by Christian Oksonic. Next steps to be taken. Mr. Oksonic, you have the floor again. Well, it's been said already. It's a non-for-profit association, Wiener Konzerthaus. But then, of course, you always need the public sector as well. You need public funding, don't you? if you look at the map, you'll realize that we're looking for donors and for funders all the time. And this may also send an important signal to other institutions. This could be a role model. I'm a cultural junkie, if you like, a culture vulture, and I'm quite sure that in the next few weeks and months, I'll be getting on the nerves of cultural institutions because I will tell them that they have to come up with inclusive offers. So I'm not going to let go of this. I'm not going to give up. Inclusion is very, very important. Thank you. Well, thanks for your commitment. All right, we've taken a look at 5 solutions, 5 projects, international ones and national ones. So we've seen a lot of examples now. But of course, sustainability is key. And what I realize is that the business community needs to get together with politicians, the field of culture. I'm very much looking forward to a Zero Project conference devoted to sport, for example. So we now will listen to Martin Essel, who will make a few concluding comments, and he will also share some news with us.
Ja, das war ein...
Thank you. What a wonderful event. Let me thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you to the Secretary General of the Parliamentary Administration, Mr. Dossi, for inviting us yet again. And thank you also for giving us the possibility to come back in a year from now to present once again 5 innovation next year on the topic of education. And I think this invitation is an important symbol as well. Parliament is there for everyone, for persons with and without disabilities. We've heard about some fascinating innovations. Thank you also to the presenters. Thank you also for the very, very important critical questions, very important when it comes to implementing innovations. And as has been said, we can only be accessible as a society and successful if everyone is involved and everyone works towards achieving these goals, not for persons with disabilities, but with persons with disabilities. This is our driver and has been our driver in our project for years. And let me now make an announcement. We have now completed the first event of the Zero Project Conference of this year. More than 300 people from all over the world have come here. Thank you for your participation. We're going to continue in the afternoon with a few events, and tomorrow at Vienna's UN City when the official conference is going to start. I've brought along a present, first of all, for the President of the National Council, Wolfgang Sobotka, and Secretary General Dossi. I've received the first copies of a brand new museum guide. This is an initiative that we have started in cooperation with many organizations from the community of disabled organizations for the disabled. And at the conference, many copies are going to be available. As Mr. Laske said, this is about the fact that persons with disabilities often have difficulties participating in cultural events, and we want to open up this space, make it known which accessibility measures and initiatives are available. We have published 400 pages worth of information put together by various organizations, advocacy groups. Klaus Höckner, for example, was involved. And this publication includes 136 examples of museums in all of Austria, in all the Austrian provinces, how cultural events and architectural accessibility can be ensured. This is not going to be available only as a book, printed book, but also as an app. So you will also be able to use your mobile phone to see which museums are also open and accessible for all of us. And it should also serve as motivation, as we've heard. This is also an incentive for other institutions, and it should lead to raising the level of accessibility in cultural institutions also in the future. There's a lot of room for improvement, and I do hope that this idea, and I think it's a unique idea, something we've never seen so far, can also be exported to other countries. And let me thank all of you once again.
Vielen, vielen Dank, lieber Martin.
Thank you very much, Martin, to you and your team. So this is another innovation from Austria that we hope to bring to the rest of the world as well. And at the end of today's event, I'm looking forward to the closing remarks by the Secretary General of the Parliamentary Administration, Harald Dossi. Welcome. Thank you very much, Mr. Onea, for moderating the event this morning. Mr. Essel, President, ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament, dear participants, it's good to have you here at the Austrian Parliament. Today we've heard about a number of fascinating initiatives which have one thing in common. They all deal with participation in public life, in political life. It's all the more important and positive to hold this event here at the Austrian Parliament. And this is something I've seen today and that we see every year. On the one hand, we hear a lot about innovations every year. Today as well, it's not just technical and technological innovations, but also a lot of creative spirit that's behind these innovations. But that in itself isn't sufficient. With all these initiatives, what's important is to also raise awareness on the topic and on the challenges. And so I'm particularly pleased that we've had representatives from all parliamentary parties over the years who volunteered to present and promote these initiatives, and I would like to thank them. Let me also add a request. You've announced your pledge. You've mentioned that you would like to follow up on the initiatives and support the initiatives that you presented, support their implementation. I would like to thank you for that. But when it comes to awareness raising, I would also request that and kindly ask you that you raise these questions also in your parliamentary groups. I think that would also be an important part of this initiative. Our president, the Speaker of the Parliament, has mentioned this. We are always trying to make the topic of inclusion a topic that's part of our everyday work, and the refurbishment of the parliamentary building, which has now been successfully completed, is just one of many examples in this effort. During this refurbishment project, we tried not only to bring about a sustainable renovation of the building, and I think we've been very successful in doing so. Our climate protection minister last week provided us or awarded us with a prize for sustainability, which is something that is very good and possible. But on the other hand, of course, day-to-day work in the building itself has to bring about the same sustainability. And I'm pleased to announce that we're going to be the first parliament to receive the EMAS certificate of the European Union. So we're going to be officially certified a sustainable parliament. And I can assure you that our members of staff in the parliamentary administration embrace this as part of their tasks. As regards our tasks and our endeavors, one of our objectives is and has been accessibility with regard to the building, and I'm very pleased to say that many of you, especially those of you sitting to my left and to my right, have been supporting us enormously in this effort to make Parliament accessible. You are too many for me to name you all now, but it has been a pleasure to be counting on your support, and we have tried to make sure not only to make the building itself accessible, but also to make everything that leaves the building, everything that is open for assessment and for seeing and using in this building. One example is our new website, which has gone online together with the opening of the new building, which has which is to be considered a new milestone when it comes to accessible websites. And I would also like to invite you to come and visit our visitors center, which offers a wealth of information on the history of parliamentarianism and on more recent events. And we've also tried to make this offer as accessible as possible. We've engaged in a very open and in-depth dialogue with you, and this consultation has been very pleasant, and it's been good to see how diverse, how open and positive this community is, and we've always welcomed your suggestions, and I do hope that we've managed to take on board and implement most of your suggestions. Feedback is another topic that has been mentioned today. Let me mention this again. If there's anything in terms of inclusion or accessibility that has come to your attention today, please do let us know. You will also meet colleagues from parliamentary staff this afternoon. If there's anything positive you've remarked or anything you want to talk to us about, anything that does not work, please do let us know. We're going to collect your feedback and are going to act on it accordingly. In closing, let me first of all thank Mr. Essel and his team. First of all, for the Zero Project Conference in the first place. It's an important project, and we're going to continue to support it. This has been said already. And thank you also for the very good cooperation in the run-up to today's event. And I'm looking around. Thank you also to our colleagues in the parliamentary administration who have also tried to implement the project in the new setting here in our renovated building. Thank you to all of you for your active participation. And I would now like to wish you all the best for the continuation of the event in the afternoon, and then tomorrow and the day after tomorrow in the UN Center here in Vienna. Thank you very much and all the best.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Dr. Dossi.
Thank you, Mr. Dossi, Secretary General of the Parliamentary Administration. And it's good to hear that you did not just think of accessibility in terms of making the building accessible. I think we have everything we need to make sure that inclusion of persons with disabilities will be more successful in the future, also including the voices of self-advocates that show that we have to be part of this, that we have to be part of this society and nothing should happen without us. Since the government line here in front is accessible, as we can see, I'm looking forward to ministers, maybe even chancellors with disabilities that show that it doesn't matter whether you have a disability. We are important for what we can say and contribute, and that's what counts. I'm very happy to conclude this event now that we have spent together. As you know, there is an event that is going to continue in the afternoon, and tomorrow there's going to be a reception then in the Column Hall. And in closing, let me also announce the Zero Project hymn that has been composed for the project as a symbol for our objective, a world open to all for persons with and without disabilities. We're going to show you a special version of this hymn that has been interpreted into 15 international sign languages. So no barriers here. And in closing, let us now hear and see the hymn.
Education, employment, accessibility, independent living, and political participation, innovative practices, and innovative policies, a network of civil society.
If you see me, take me just the way I am. We could change the world because we understand. If we both are part of the same society, I could be me. Zero barriers, zero walls, zero borders, zero bonds, zero limits. By reaching our aim, zero project, the dignity of man.
Hey, if you give me chances and take me by the hand, if you let me grow and if you let me be, if we all give up our partiality, then I could be free. Zero barriers, zero walls, zero borders, zero bonds, zero limits, reaching our end, zero project, the dignity of men.
borders, zero bonds, zero limits, by reaching out.